y'all, Christi here with Little Salty Homesteader. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am back today with another weekly update. I'm starting to clear some stuff out to get ready for fall planting, and then a few things have been planted for the fall, so let's go around and see what's happening. All right, as usual, we're starting over here in the tomato patch. There was a shade cloth here until a really windy, weird, random freak windstorm came through and just shredded it. So I had to take it down this morning. And so if we get some super hot temperatures again, this stuff might turn into crispy critters, but let's hope not. We'll start over here in this bed. So I still need to direct sow some green zebra and partial eclipse squash into this bed. I have not done it yet because there were some ant issues. So you can see where I kind of sprinkled diatomaceous earth throughout the bed. I can probably get those seeds sown today and get them watered in really well. I'm not seeing any more ants crawling around or anything, but I wanted to take care of that issue before I got more plants planted in here. Some things that are happening from the plants that already exist is you could see how we have a ton of the Carolina Reapers that are starting to get ripe, much to my husband's pleasure, hopefully. So we have several here across the plant. This plant is kind of sprawling. It's not super tall, but it's really bushy. So it's got peppers kind of all over the place. And there's a couple of habaneros that are ripe and ready. So what I did with the peppers that already got ripe, I dehydrated those, and I'm gonna crush them up today actually to be used for like a super hot crushed red pepper. If enough of these become ripe at one time, I may attempt to make a hot sauce, although that might kill me in the kitchen. We'll see. But if they're slow to ripen like the rest of them have been, I'll just continue dehydrating them, and then my husband will have super hot crushed red pepper to use on whatever he likes to put crushed red pepper on. This is an Arapaho cayenne. You can see that a couple of them are starting to get ripe. These are also being dehydrated and crushed to use as cayenne and crushed red pepper. Same thing with these Buena Mulatas. They ripen a few at a time. I harvested some yesterday, so I'm not sure there's any today, but I do the same thing with these, dehydrate and crush up. I probably could make like a cayenne hot sauce. Grasshopper damage on that one. I probably could make a cayenne hot sauce with all of the peppers as they get ripe. I'm pretty sure it's relatively easy. Vinegar, peppers, you know, etc. So I may try that, but we have like 10 bottles of hot sauce on our table, so it's not like a necessary thing. It would just be a, let's see if I can do this thing. And then on the end here, this is Italian oregano. It is obviously very fully blooming. If you saw the pollinator there going around it. It's kind of making a big mess, like just because it's so sprawling and all over the place. But oregano does have a tendency to kind of take over its space, very similar to mint. So at this point, I don't have any plans on like thinning it out or getting rid of it or anything, because I do use it pretty extensively. But if it starts to encroach on the entire bed, then I may end up thinning it out. All right, this middle bed here that has jalapenos and serranos, I did water this bed because it does have pumpkin seeds sown in it, as well as some companion plants for those pumpkins. So I have marigolds, white icicle radish, and dill all planted around the pumpkin seeds. So at this end is the spark mini pumpkin, and then down at the other end is the mandarin mini pumpkin. I posted a video on Monday discussing those varieties and how the companion plants kind of work. So if you haven't watched that, go ahead and go check it out. But on the pepper side of things, I probably have enough peppers to harvest to be able to make some pickled jalapenos, because a lot of these plants have quite a few peppers on them. So if I have time today, I may get out here and harvest and try to do that. I usually pickle things in pint-sized jars because my stock pot isn't deep enough for quart-sized jars. So probably a couple of pints worth of jalapenos out here that I can pickle, which will be good. And that's a big fat bumblebee. Hello. And then down here is serranos. I'm just harvesting them as they get ripe because we haven't really been eating recipes where we needed the fresh green ones. So they're just getting dehydrated with the cayennes and stuff for now. I will try to do some meal planning that incorporates the fresh serranos, so we'll be able to utilize those. All right, over here in this bed has a few random assortments of things. So we still have some dill, which I see some new swallowtail caterpillars on. So you can see there's several. There's one that's pretty big. So we'll have some more swallowtail butterflies, hopefully. This plant right here probably has a good 6 or 8 scattered along the whole plant. So that's pretty cool. I'll try to get close so you guys can see those. There we go. So, yay! There's another small one on there. So that's really awesome that we have more swallowtail caterpillars. I've already had one round grow and, go off to become butterflies. So really cool that we have a second round happening here. The other stuff that is in this bed is eggplant, which you can see one right there. That's the Thanos variety. We have Listata the Gandia and Shooting Stars eggplants over there. And then we have blue goose, cowpeas down the middle of the bed. So as they reach this semi-dry stage here where it kind of feels a little bit papery, that's whenever I'm harvesting them, and I take them in and just shell them onto a dehydrator tray. I don't dehydrate them like with the electric dehydrator. I just set the tray on my heat mat that has my sourdough starter and let them dry out that way, and then I just put them into a jar to use for New Year's. Really, that's the only time we eat black-eyed peas, so it's kind of silly to spend all this time growing things for one meal. But I kind of like the idea that I'm growing my own luck. So this is my 3rd year doing this, and I'll probably continue to keep doing it as long as I possibly can. The other benefit to growing cowpeas is because they are a legume, they are a nitrogen fixing plant, meaning they pull nitrogen out of the air, store it in their roots. So after you're done with the plant, you can just kind of chop it off at the soil level, and then as the roots break down, they deposit that nitrogen into the soil to be utilized by other plants. So they're kind of like a bonus soil amendment, so to speak. So here we have some more of those blue goose cowpeas, an ant on my finger, so you can see the blossoms are really cute lilac color. All right, so in the coming weeks for this tomato patch, of course, we'll have those squash plants planted in the back. That was the green zebra and the partial eclipse. And then in this front bed here, I am going to be planting Boston pickling cucumber around September 1st. So basically in exactly a month. So there will be some more plants coming through. And then of course, making room for the fall brassicas and root vegetables as well. All right, over here in the okra patch, there are some things that are starting to do really, really well, and then some things that are kind of starting to struggle. So for the stuff that's doing really, really well, it's going to be the okra, and then the cowpeas that are in this bed. This bed has the pink eye purple hull cowpeas, and they are really starting to put on peas now. Now these are about a week behind the blue goose cowpeas in the tomato patch, but you can see they are starting to set, and there's a blossom right there that's like a very, very pale purple. If the camera even captures it, it might look white on camera. But the okra really doing well, harvesting okra every single day. We do have a melon in here that is growing pretty well. It is a hamey variety. It's back there in that corner. I'll walk back there and show you guys. There's okra and cowpeas together while I'm walking back there to get the hamey melon. So here we go. So this will be a yellow melon. It is a Chinese heirloom variety. I received the seeds for free, so I'm not entirely sure what it tastes like, but I'm excited for the kids to be able to try it. I'm not a big melon eater, but they are. All right, some other stuff that's happening in this bed. Bell peppers are still kind of growing along. We have some small bell peppers here. We still have this one swallowtail butterfly. I forget what it's called. Not a cocoon. I can't remember the word off the top of my head right now. But it's still just hanging out, so hopefully it emerges soon. Another bell pepper plant. I've harvested several this week that we used for a few different things. So there's just a couple of little babies growing at the moment, but they've been fairly productive so far. And then we have ancho poblanos here, here, and here. Two of these plants are really kind of suffering a bit, and I'm not entirely sure what's going on with them. I've been keeping up with fertilizer and stuff, trying to encourage new growth, which there is at the top, but the rest of the plant just looks terrible. I may end up just cutting them down, get some space ready for fall planting. We're gonna have a lot of brassicas and a lot of root crops that we need room for, so it's gonna start to become, you know, we're really gonna have to make some decisions on what gets cleared out and what gets to stay in terms of, you know, trying to grow stuff through August and September whenever it's time to start transplanting things in. So these two plants might definitely get removed, and then I'll try poblanos again next year. We'll see. I don't think it's an issue with the soil itself, because the stuff that's planted with it is doing really well. Like this marigold is huge, and then of course the cowpeas are doing well, and okra and all that stuff is doing well. So I think it's just the plants themselves. Not entirely sure. So yeah, decisions to be made there. Trying to get ready for fall and winter gardening. So we'll see what happens. So once that melon does come off, if I don't see any others that are growing, I'll probably go ahead and remove the vine, because some snow peas will be planted along this trellis, and I want to make sure that they have plenty of room and sunlight and stuff to be able to germinate and grow. There is like a very slow growing butterfly pea flower down here that was planted early in the spring. I have no idea if it's going to come to anything, so I'll probably just remove it and try again next year. But yeah, it's really going to become do or die time with these melons if they don't really start producing more than they are. And over here you can see I cut the spent sunflowers down. There really wasn't anything left except like dead flower heads. So the idea for this is to amend this space, get it ready for garlic. That will be planted in October, so it'll kind of just be an empty space until then. Perfectly fine with that. I don't think that there's any sort of like root crops or anything I want to grow in that over the winter. I think I have enough room in raised beds and stuff for all of that. So really just getting that cleaned up and ready for garlic, getting these cleaned up and ready for the snow peas. On this side there is a Kajari melon. You can see here. I expect it'll start turning ripe pretty soon. I don't think it gets very big. I grew it once before in Allen, but rabbits kept getting them before, you know, we could. So I don't remember exactly how big they get, but I think it's about this size. So it should start getting ripe pretty soon, and then the kids will get to eat that guy too. Now there is a Chinese red noodle bean on here that is producing relatively well now. So I'm gonna let this guy continue to grow and produce for us. We've been using them for stir fry. So it's really nice to have that fresh veggie available. And then there is a cucumber plant in here that is finally starting to grow. This is the Haas Tools Haussinator cucumber. So that will be our one of our fall cucumber plants. Hopefully we get some cucumbers off of there to make some pickles for Logan. Otherwise, once this melon comes off, if I don't see any others reaching a mature size, I'll remove that plant and get it ready for the snow peas and stuff. Then over in this bed does have, obviously it has more okra and it has more cowpeas. This variety is the phenomenal variety, and you can see how productive these plants are. They are a variety from Burpee Seeds, and they are spotted black and white like a Holstein cow. I think it's Holstein. I'm sorry if that's incorrect. And then there is a partial eclipse squash right here that is growing pretty well. I just randomly sowed a seed to see if I could get it to grow. And then this bed has the black bear pumpkins right here. So there's a lot going on in this bed. The sweet peppers are shishito, and then these candy cane chocolate cherry sweet peppers. It looks like maybe the production is slowing down a little bit on these, so it may be another situation where we start clearing plants out to get ready for fall planting, because again, tons of brassicas, tons of root vegetables that need a place to go. Also, the other day, the basil in these two beds got pruned pretty heavily back. You can see where it's trying to grow back. It'll become even bushier than it was before. So I'll just kind of have to keep an eye on that and make sure I keep it pruned back so that it doesn't impede on any light for the other plants, because they still need light in order to grow and stuff. So a lot of maintenance to be done within the garden as far as pruning goes to make sure everything else can still grow in a healthy way. Then we have icicle radish forming seed pods here. This one is kind of the buddy plant to go with the pumpkins there to help slow down the onslaught of squash bugs. Hopefully it works. All right, these two containers have been cleaned out from, they had corn, borage, basil, marigolds all growing within them. They're cleaned out now. I think these are going to house garlic as well. So they will get amended and fertilized and stuff. I do have some nutsedge growing in this one, so I'm just trying to get that removed as it pops up. So garlic, I'm gonna have more garlic growing this year than I did last year, because last year I only had it here, but it's gonna be in a few other places as well, because can you really grow too much garlic? I don't think you can. So talking about this section, we are only gonna have sunflowers at this end, and that's totally okay. These are starting to put on pretty good amount of height. The ones in the front are a shorter variety, so these won't be as tall. These will be, 5 to 7 foot tall. These will be 24 to 36 inches, I believe. They're pretty short. So we're just kind of keeping an eye on those, waiting for them to grow and bloom. The flower bed, I have not made any changes to the flower bed since last week. I haven't added any plants or taken away any plants. So it probably looks exactly the same as it did a week ago, maybe a few more flowers blooming. One thing that is going to happen within the next month or so is the spider lilies that are planted in here are gonna sprout, and we'll start to see the greenery from those pretty soon. I still need to cut those back. I just have not had a chance to do it. These are the Henry Dulberg salvia, aka mealy sage. They grow like a beast. They got a lot bigger than I wanted them to get, so I'm gonna take them out. And I just saw this guy. So if you can see right there, we have a cool little praying mantis. Hello. I did see it in the strawberries a couple of weeks ago, but I hadn't seen it since, so I thought it left, but it's still hanging out. So that's awesome. Sorry, I am easily distracted by bugs. All right, so these snapdragons They're not really flowering, but they're still alive. So I guess they're just kind of keeping weeds from creeping in there, which I'm totally fine with. The Rudbeckia is still blooming like crazy. And then we have Echinacea here. Cosmos are kind of scattered, a few plants here. More Rudbeckia, milkweed. Down here, feverfew, really blooming. It's super cute. More milkweed, feverfew, you know, kind of the mirror image almost, except there's no cool praying mantis down here. I need to come out here and prune off these spent blooms so that the flowers will continue to put on more blooms, but these have been blooming almost all summer, so that's really cool. And then the Gaillardia, of course, I need to come prune off the spent blooms on these as well to encourage more blooming and such. Over here, we have the ginger. It's doing really well. Since the shade cloth is now down, I may have to move it. I'll keep an eye on it to see. Oh, it smells like ginger. That's awesome. I may have to move it next to the other ginger if it is getting too much sunlight here. So I will keep an eye on it. Hopefully it does pretty well because it's very happy in that location right now. And then here's the other ginger. This one is also doing fairly well. It's getting a lot of new shoots, which is just within the last week or two. So that's really encouraging. So hopefully, you know, whenever it is time to harvest the ginger, I get quite a bit out of the 2 grow bags. All right, the pepper green stalk. It is actually not looking too terrible. We had a couple of days where it was very, very, very hot. So I have tried to keep up on the watering, making sure that there's plenty of water in these. And I think that I've done an okay job because I am seeing blooms. I'm not seeing a ton of leaf loss. I'm seeing new leaves actually, and I'm harvesting peppers pretty regularly from here. So I think once it cools down a little bit, these guys will really start putting on a ton of peppers. We'll see. And then this guy, this is a Tabasco. This was a volunteer, so of course it's gonna be healthier than all the others that I intentionally grew. But it's starting to put on quite a few peppers as well, so that's really exciting. I still need to transplant in some basil, and then in these pockets, I think I'm gonna put some Persian carpet zinnias just to get some more flowers in here. Those are over there ready to transplant. I'm just waiting for a relatively cooler day. So today or tomorrow would be good days to transplant those over here. So we'll see if I get that done. Strawberries, I did actually prune off a lot of the dead leaves and icky parts. It's still not looking super great. You can see where there's still some stuff that needs to be removed, but there are a ton of runners. So I could come through and kind of deposit them into the pockets here, see if I can get them to take root and grow, sort of spread the strawberries out through the entire green stalk. That way I have more strawberries next year. It is looking better since I pruned it up. Also pretty heavily watered it since it has been so hot. I'll probably get another round of fertilizer in here over the weekend just to encourage some healthy new leaf growth. But overall, it's looking better than it was before I pruned off the icky dead yuck parts. All right, I still need to remove a couple of basil plants out of here. This one is doing really well, so it will get to stay. And this one is doing pretty well, so it will get to stay. But the rest of them that have some like gross looking leaves, I'm gonna go ahead and remove. That will increase the airflow in here and, you know, reduce some of the crowding issues. Looks like I need to get some fertilizer in here, so I'll get that done this weekend as well. The herb green stalk, I don't think really anything has changed since last week. The stuff that was blooming is still kind of blooming. The stuff that was dying off is still kind of dying off. I did harvest some tarragon to use in a recipe the other day. the marshmallow, I wanted to come over here. There are a few blooms on the marshmallow, so that's really good. At this point, I'm just trying to keep this guy watered and keep these plants alive that are in here, not really doing anything as far as like harvesting or preservation, stuff like that. I mean, I'm harvesting it as I need it for like the culinary herbs, but other than that, I'm just kind of letting it grow and go wild. We'll see what happens by the end of August, how wild it looks. But that is a look at the garden on August 1st. It's not looking too shabby considering we are at the hottest part of the summer. There are going to be quite a few fall things coming in and out, so stay tuned for that. But overall pleased with how the garden is looking today. All right, but that's all I have for this week's weekly update. If you would like to continue to see how the garden grows and changes from week to week, please like, subscribe, and comment to this video. Otherwise, until next time, go find a way to get those garden manicures. Bye.